Good morning. Today I'm bringing to you another American classic. This classic was introduced in 1911. And of course, 1911, I'm talking about the Colt 1911. This is a self-loading semi-automatic handgun. It was designed by James Browning, and the design was actually copied so many times throughout the gun's history that it became the standard for centerfire handguns, self-loading handguns. Now, James Browning wasn't the one that designed self-loading. Okay, there was another guy, his name was Maxim, and in the 1880s, he was the one that was pioneering self-loading weapons. But he was primarily involved with machine guns. That's what he wanted to do. So James Browning took and made a smaller version and made it into his handgun. Since it was introduced, the military had bought 2.7 million of these handguns to be used. It's still in service in some areas today, but for the most part, in 1985, the military switched over to the 9mm, and they used the Browning M9. There were a couple of reasons for this, and number one, the 1911 inventory was getting old, and those of us that were in the military then know that you used to be able to take, when you go to the pistol range and shake them, and they would rattle and so forth, and so they were getting old. They wanted something lighter. The 1911 empty weighs 2.5 pounds, and the magazine itself is not light either. So the magazine is 8 rounds, and the caliber is 45 ACP. So it's a healthy round. It's a healthy round it puts out. At the end of the 1800s, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of competition for different weapons, with the rifles, with handguns, etc. So there was a competition kind of, or they were asking for submissions, the United States, for a replacement handgun for their. There was a 1892 revolver, which was in 38 long. So they came up and they had Mauser came up with a version and that was in 7.62, and it was the broom handle model. Which, if you've ever seen it, it's a you have your handgun, and then you have the magazine that comes down like this. And they called that the broom handle. Mannlicher also had a version of a handgun that was out there for people to look at, and of course Colt's Browning handgun was out there for people to look at. It was done in 45 caliber. Well, the Mauser won, and the military was pretty happy with it, and they ordered 1,000 of these guns so that they could distribute them. Well, in the Philippines, there was the Moro Rebellion, which was, the way I've read it, is nothing more than the Filipino people trying to win their independence from us, and so there was the war going on, and the military was using their 38 long pistols, revolvers, and they found that it didn't have enough stopping power. So these people, the Moros, would do drugs and whatever, and to make them more fierce warriors, and which the Germans did the same thing in World War II. But and they would attack, and they found that these 38s were not enough to stop these people. So they were back to the drawing board, and they decided then, when it went back, that the 45 Colt was actually the way to go. So Colt won the contract, and the rest was history. And it all came down to the stopping power. There was one story that I had read where they were trying to see how many rounds the Colt could put out, for before there was a problem with it. And they said that after several thousand rounds, the Colt was getting hot, and was perhaps maybe on the verge of a failure. So what they did was they walked over to a bucket of water and they put the Colt into the water and switched it around to cool it off, and took it out and continued firing after that. So that shows the resiliency of the weapon, and part of that resiliency is this simplicity of the thing. There's very few moving parts that the service member has to worry about, and I think that added to the longevity of the gun. Okay, so here we go. This one here obviously has been a little modified with the sight. Okay, makes for better sight. The front sight here is actually been modified too. But it's the same concept. Like I said, the design has not changed much over the years. Some of the things that happened was they actually added safeties, more safeties to it, and to make it a safer gun. One of the safeties is on this side here. You can see it. It goes up. We got nothing in it, and it goes up. This keeps the slide from sliding, and it keeps the trigger from firing. One of the other safeties that they have is the hand grip safety, and it's right here. And you have to grip the handgun in order for it to work. As you can see, that it keeps it from doing what it's supposed to do. So that's the safety part. As I told you, I think that it has an 8-round magazine. Copies of the 1911 would have different calibers, and obviously the 9mm or the 40 cal, which I have a Glock 40, which is similar design, and I can fit 13 rounds inside of it. One of the problems that I found with this handgun, and this is just me, is that I have smaller hands, and with some service members do have smaller hands, and I have trouble gripping. I can shoot it, but I can't reach the safety or the slide lock, and I have to the slide lock, and so I have to go around and do. So I would not, as beautiful as the gun this is, and it is my son's gun, not mine. It's we're babysitting it for him. For me, it would be a problem that I can't reach. So I would be more likely to go for the smaller handguns. My Glock 40 is actually almost too big for my hands also. Okay, let's see how this works now. The handgun, the first, it's empty. The first thing that happens is you put your magazine inside. The magazine, the rounds are tilted up for a reason. Because what happens is when you either charge your weapon or you do it from the locked position. I have to move my hand around. What happens is the slide picks up a round and brings it up and slams it into the barrel. The barrel's stationary, so everything that moves, it moves with the slide. So when it pushes the round into the barrel, there are lugs on the barrel that coincide with lugs on the slide, and it locks the slide in place. So you fire your weapon, and it goes out, And when that happens, the recoil, it causes the slide to go back. When it goes back, it pulls the round out of the barrel, and it ejects. So now there's a spring in there that's causing all this to come back. And when the spring causes the slide to come back to its position again, original position, it picks up another round and slams that round into the barrel. And that'll continue on until you get to the end of your ammunition. And that's why it's called self-loading. Um, is because it takes care of it on its own. When the rounds are Parkinson's, when the rounds are no more in the magazine itself, the follower has a little upward thing, and it causes the weapon to lock in this position, and you know that it's empty. So that way there's no guessing. Um, uh, it's a good gun. Obviously, people they used it for an awfully long time in the military, and not just our military. Um, I don't know if I mentioned that the Colt Company had sold the military 2.7 million of them over the course of the years that it was being used, and it was used in World War One, Two, Korea, Vietnam, and everything in between. The Gulf War, it was used uh, to some degree because they were still using the 45s. Um, they changed over to the 9mm Beretta, and now from what I've read is they have the M17, which is made by Sig Sauer, which is made in neighboring New Hampshire, and it's also a 9mm. And it's like why the military went to 9mm over 45. There's different reasons that people talk about, and one of them is it's a smaller handgun, lighter, that people like myself could use easier than using the 45. It's a NATO round, so the rest of NATO was using the 9mm, and we were using the 45. I don't know for sure what the reason was, and they certainly didn't call me and ask me, "Hey Tom, what should we do?" But anyway, that's the 1911. That's it's a great handgun, and people, there's a lot of them around. They're pretty resilient. Um, with dirt and banging them around, and just over time, they continue to hold their worth. So, all right, well, thank you for watching.